And at the moment, we're still very much a semi-conscious or semi-unconscious species. And we're not acting with forethought and taking responsibility for what's happening. And so we have figures like the last George Bush or Tony Hayward, who kind of are representatives of this overriding irresponsibility and kind of sociopathology that corporations and the military and the governments all manifest.
Continue to perpetuate.
I do think that the BP oil spill may very well be part of the unfolding of prophecy. The Hopi talked about the waters turning black.
Mm-hmm.
From recent information I've been gathering about it, it may be highly unlikely that they're able to staunch the leak. It's already beginning to fissure the ocean floors, seeing more and more oil and gas come up. There's even fears that it could lead to a kind of mega disaster where the ocean floor would collapse, a huge amount of methane gas would come rushing up, maybe like a volcano exploding, and as much as several billion barrels of oil would then be released in one day potentially. So we have to hope that doesn't happen. But even if it continues as it's been continuing, we're looking at 100,000 barrels or so a day. It's going to be.
Some estimates say that's low.
Yeah, well, it's going to be a very,
depending on what your news source is.
If you look at these hurricanes, if the toxicity of the core exit, they may be having to evacuate a lot of the southern coastal regions at a certain point.
Let's take, absolutely. I mean, it's said that even if because of the Gulf Stream and the amount of ice coming in and the changing of the temperatures of the Gulf Stream, that a lot of this oil may actually transport transatlantically and end up on the coast of Europe, on the western coast of Europe, even before it reaches the east coast of the United States.
I hadn't heard that. I mean, I guess it all depends on which ways the currents swirl. But in any event, it's a horrifying unfolding cataclysm.
Exactly.
And hopefully it's a tremendous wake-up call for humanity. I have to say that when I wrote 2012, I had almost more faith that there would be this awakening. Now I think I still work for it and fight for it. That's why I'm bothering to be on this talk show rather than kicking it in Hawaii or something.
Right.
But I think we're in deep trouble.
Yes.
And we need to create infrastructures to somehow replace the dysfunctional systems that are running us into the ground. I mean, you mentioned Reality Sandwich. My other project has been one called Evolver. Evolver.net is our social network, and out of Evolver we've created something that we're calling the Evolver Social Movement. We now have about 40 groups meeting up in the U.S. and internationally. We're calling them Evolver Regionals, and their monthly gatherings are Evolver Spores, kind of referencing the mushrooms. And so we create themes around each month. People come together, and then hopefully those become the launching pad for more projects, and hopefully also as the whole thing grows, and it's growing quite rapidly now, it can create a kind of infrastructure for social organizing. So if we had 1 million people involved in the U.S. right now, we could do something, about BP. We could rally. We could. We're not at that scale level yet.
Yes.
But somehow the whole, method of protesting and kind of dealing with the dominant system has to be changed. It's just not very effective. And I went to a Code Pink rally on Houston Street against BP, and it was pointless, I thought. So there needs to be a rapid evolution of the techniques and tactics those people who have entered a different understanding of the situation.
Exactly.
Use.
You're highlighting, Daniel, I think a very important point, which is that there is, when we see such destruction of our environment, when we see such destruction of our living environments and the way humans are treated, from child labor practices to the sex slaves in Asia and on and on and on, our heart breaks, and we are called to social action. And yet it appears, like what happened on Houston Street with Code Pink, the screaming and demonstrating on the street, which I used to do as a hippie in the 60s against Vietnam. Yes, it had its impact, but I think that part of the evolution is that we're learning how to work on another level that doesn't polarize just on that level, but sort of rising above the fray, so to speak, and working. To me, this is one of the beauties of the Santo Daime and other forms of ayahuasca and the hallucinogens in general to sort of empower our psychic level and nature to work on a mental field.
Right, but that's not enough.
Yeah. I don't think so either.
Yeah.
I'm big for action, and I'm actually big for economy. What you probably know the work of David Korten.
Yes.
Of when corporations ruled the world, etc. And his latest work has a lot to do with setting up decentralized local economies, and actually even emphasizing barter instead of ordinary currency.
Well, actually, that's a subject that we address in depth in the film, 2012 Time for Change. We feature the works of
Bernard Littauer.
Bernard Littauer, I think.
Yes.
Who is a Belgian currency expert. He was involved with creating the euro. And he...
the author of The Future of Money.
Future of Money. And he lays out in the film that... we're really, the monoculture money system is unsustainable. And I think we can see that with the corporate system. Corporations or organisms that have to work within the stock market. So they're forced to maximize profit making to reward their shareholders. And so therefore, whatever it takes.
I don't believe that, by the way. I have come up with an alternative system to that paradigm that can be within.
From the mainstream perspective, what they see
it is set
they
up
need
that
to do is as efficiently as possible maximize profit.
Right.
And that's all that's what those organisms are kind of designed to do. So in that case, you're definitely going to take.
That's our death knell, unfortunately.
Correct. So Littauer proposes kind of superseding that system by developing a whole range of different currency instruments. That there's no reason there has to just be one monoculture form of money. I think he's very brilliant in the film. Also, I did want to mention, you mentioned that July 8th we're having this showing at the SVA Theater in Chelsea.
Yes.
That's also going to include a panel. It's a more expensive ticket. It's a $25 ticket. But after the film, we're going to have some of the people who are in the film or featured in the film on a panel discussion, including Sting, Paul Stamets, the mycologist, who has some very interesting projects around bioremediating, oil with mushrooms. Tayakasin Ghost Horse, who's a Lakota Indian, has his own radio show, and Joao Amarim, the director of the film, and myself. So
excellent.
I hope people will get to check that out.
Oh yeah, definitely. I think that's going to be hot. The film is so interesting. What I've seen of it is just I saw the part with The Economist you were just talking about. He's a brilliant man. I've also read his book, and I can't pronounce his last name properly. But
I could be wrong also, actually.
But nonetheless, it's really interesting to hear you talk about this notion of monoculture and like monocurrency. And I never heard that notion of monoculture imported, if you will, into economics. That's a very interesting idea. He says very flatly in the film and explicitly, this is completely unsustainable. It's as though, and he uses that wonderful image of, what if we were driving a car and all of a sudden the steering wheel stopped working? And even if you had immense skill as a driver, it doesn't matter. You're going to go crashing into the storefront. And he said we have a runaway economy, basically, and that's where it's going, and there's really no way. Yeah. Is there something else he offered? I mean, was that the image?
Later on, he comes back again, and he talks about some specific models. He talks about one from Japan called Furyo Kipo, which is a caring relationship ticket, is what it translates into. It's basically a way that if you take care of an elderly person, you get credits in a computerized system, and then your mother or your child can get taken care of, reciprocally.
Interesting.
But that's only one of many different tools that he's looking at.
Yeah.
And I think this is going to be a very critical issue for people very soon. I think it's quite possible at some point that the monetary system is going to go into a deep tailspin. Basically, what they did after the 2008 meltdown was they artificially kept everything going. The Federal Reserve just created a huge amount of money and handed it over to the financial institutions. So you're creating money basically out of nothing, and that doesn't seem like it can be a very sustainable model.
But that's not new, Daniel. They've been doing that for a long time.
Yeah, but eventually it either leads to massive deflation or massive inflation or both.
Right, exactly. Once you take a paper currency and remove it from some kind of actual asset, like gold, which is the standard one, of course, which was done, it was actually begun in 1933, you're going to have trouble in River City. It can't be sustainable because you just have your hand on the printing press. I'd like to remind people that our U.S. dollar printing press happens to be in South Korea right now.